Before I get started, I'll just give you a couple of updates after I change my screen because I get so big. Two things I wanted to update you on. One is about our lessons. Kind of go back to the beginning of the pandemic that we've had, that we continue to be in, and will probably continue to be in for an unforeseen future until things start to settle down. You know, especially for those of you that may be new to the ministry, the pandemic really wreaked havoc across prisons and wreaked havoc with prison ministries that go inside to volunteer inside prisons. Yet Crossroads was one of the few prison ministries that was able to continue to do what they do. And it was really only by God's grace, because it really was uncertain when this all started. You know, we had 140 volunteers that came into our office every week just to make the whole system flow. And suddenly our doors, we only could have 2 or 3 people in the building. And, you know, we just got it worked out that many volunteers were able to do what they were doing in the office. They would come, you know, into our parking lot, pick up bins of lessons and all the other things, and, you know, do inputting from home. And we were able to keep those lessons going to you. And for the most part, I sense that few of you saw any hiccups along the way. But part of the challenge with that was that at the same time, to keep that whole system going, we felt that we only had the capacity to maintain what we had as far as taking new students in. We couldn't take in new students for a period of time. And we just didn't have the manpower to do that. And so, you know, with people being released and attrition and things like that, our student numbers kind of leveled off and then dropped a bit. And so we were able to get our systems in place to the point where we could start taking on new students. And we had a pile of new student requests to come in. We processed all them. And then we started sending our current students what we call Spread the Word. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a card that they can hand out to their fellow prisoners, their bunkies or other people around the prison, where they could introduce them to Crossroads and they could sign up to be new students. So we've started doing that. Our numbers are starting to slowly climb. And then to also back it up, we had to get to the point where I know a number of you were taking extra lessons. You would do more than one tier 1 lesson. Some of you were doing 2, some of you doing 3, some of you doing 4 because you enjoyed it so much. And quite frankly, we asked you to do that because we had so many students that needed to be served. Well, when it started to drop, at that time we asked, can you just take 1 student for a period of time? Well, currently we're at a point now, as the numbers start to grow, and as we were talking about, the mail system has been rather erratic. There have been a couple of times where our lesson in our office, there were not what we call capacity, and I won't go into that, but there weren't enough lessons in our office to forward that week's batch off to mentors. So in the last 6 weeks or so, there was two weeks in there where we had to email you and said there won't be a lesson coming next week. And what I'm just trying to do here is just keep you informed, because you are the ministry, that if that happens again, because it could in the foreseeable future, I don't know, but I just wanted you to be informed that don't be surprised if you see an email come to you in short notice and say we will not be forwarding lessons next week. And now so now you know the reason behind it. It's just a combination of things that we just don't have enough lessons in the office to forward the whole batch, because we try to forward like 2,500 in a week. And if we don't reach that capacity, we won't mail them out. Okay. The second thing I wanted to talk about is our prisoner art project. Hopefully most of you are familiar with that. We've written about it. We've shared it on this venue. Ellie came one time. We want him to come back to this venue. He does such a great job. You see the art in threads. And so we've developed quite a beautiful traveling art show. Well, we've had a number of those on our schedule to do across the country. In fact, we were supposed to do one in Iowa in 2 weeks. But right now, our ministry has a travel. I can't travel. We in the ministry aren't allowed to travel, and for good reason. And so what we've decided to do in South Central Iowa is to have a virtual art show. And if you're from the Pella, Des Moines area, you will probably already have gotten a save the date for that. And we're really excited about having a community, just a smaller area art show where those from that area can actually come collectively as a smaller community, as a smaller church, and join together as friends and family and invite their friends, to offer the opportunity just to be a community together on mission. And so we're going to see how that goes, because we would like to see if we can offer that further out to those of you in communities where there's other mentors that actually have an art show to talk about the art. So I'm really excited about it. We'll tell you how it goes, and if it goes well, we'll probably say, hey, let's give it a try again. All right. All right. So that's all I wanted to share at the beginning. So last time we gathered, we had what I'm calling letter writing workshop number 1. And so today we're going to have letter writing workshop number 2. And we're going to continue this for a little while. And I'll tell you who our next speaker is at the end. So the last time we gathered, gave you some of the biblical principles behind letter writing, just some suggestions on what a letter could look like. I'm thinking, some of you write just beautiful letters that don't follow the sequence, so don't think that you have to follow the way that I'm telling you to do it. My hope is that you just get some ideas to maybe freshen up your letters, or to help you if you get stuck writing letters. So last week we discussed greeting. I broke the letter writing up into 4 parts. The greeting and the opening paragraph is what we talked about last time we were together, because your opening paragraph really sets the tone of your letter. And it's also an opportunity to share, kind of open up the discussion. You be the first one to share yourself, to share pieces of you and what you're doing, who you are, maybe pieces of what it looks like where you live. And then today we're going to talk about the body of the letter and the closing. So really there's 4 parts. There's the greeting, the opening paragraph, the body of the letter, and the closing. So why don't we start with the first, thought we'd have a great verse to start when we start talking about letter writing. This one's from Colossians 4. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Why don't you go to the next one then? And so I thought this was a great relevant verse to what we are doing as a ministry. It says, to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The body of the letter is the message of what you want to share, remembering we are writing in an informal style with a personal tone. We talked about formal and informal last time. We're an informal letter. A key goal is to tie portions of your letter to the lesson, because in the end, through your presence and encouragement, we are given permission to share truth. All right, next one. So what is the body of the letter composed of? It's really, from my perspective, we're reflecting on the lesson, we're encouraging and engaging with the student, and we're reminding the student God loves them. And as we go further in it, one of the tips that I wanted to give you was that as you're writing your students, try to use their first name 2 or 3 times in the letter. And a good location to do that is when you start shifting the flow of your letter. All right, the next one is the reflection on the letter. Let her catch up. So this is a spot where we can start talking about what we're learning, what the lesson, start talking about the lesson. This is where you can talk about what the lesson meant to you, and some of the additional Bible verses that are attached to the lesson that weren't maybe in the lesson, but that you felt you wanted to share. I see that a lot in people's letters. I was looking at a lesson yesterday. For most of our Bible lessons, I happen to have Great Truths of the Bible, lesson 10 here. And so when we talk about what did the lesson mean to you, many of our lessons have a theme to each lesson. And this one really has a theme regarding the church. And so this is a great opportunity for, if this was your lesson, you could talk about the church. What does the church mean to you? How has it been important in your life? How should we be as the church? What does it mean for the church? How should we be reflecting ourselves in this time of turmoil? And then another suggestion for you, and I just went in there, and there's pieces within each of these lessons that you can just go to any part of it and pull a piece out, but there are sometimes pieces in here that may need some clarification for our students. And out of this lesson 10, I honed in on a question that said, how did Jesus describe believers in Matthew 5:13 and 14? And because this is one that I had to learn about when I was new to learning about the Bible. Because in verse 13, Matthew, the question is, well, actually the fill in the blank says, you are the salt of the earth. This is how Jesus described believers. Okay, you are the salt of the earth. And so I'm thinking, well, what does that word salt, what does that mean? What does it mean for being the salt of the earth? Because salt is in other places in the Bible. It was in our first slide. And so, like I said, many students may not really know what does that context mean. And I had to think about it, and I've talked to people about it through the years. And I think about salt. Salt is savory, and it's a preservative. And how I take it, it's really a teaching moment to say it's how we live as Christians. It's how we present ourselves. For example, it centers around our integrity, our honesty, our loyalty. And so that's a great reflection, a great example of how you can reflect on the lesson. Is just pull a piece out from within that lesson and just hone in on that piece. You can fill up a good chunk of your letter with that. It's the same with the next one. You are the light of the world. And you have to ask yourself, well, what does that mean? Especially for new believers, what does it mean to be the light of the world? I got these lights, just 2 little lights above me, and it just takes a little light to shine throughout the whole room. And, because it's really, when we start thinking about light, we think about, well, our role is to help make Jesus tangible, to be his reflection, to be his ambassadors. And so that's what I pulled out of just those two little verses for examples to share today. And then the one thing I wanted to talk about was this piece about life application thoughts. You know, I've gone into the prisons. I have many prisoner friends in this world. Many of them, many of those that are incarcerated, especially those that have been walking with the Lord for a lot of years, become very versed in their Bible. They can run circles around me and many other people. They can quote Bible verses. They can, you know, if you're talking about something, they'll flip to the Bible and share something, you know, out of one of the books I normally don't look at. But one of the challenges that they often have, it is not unusual that they have, is how do they apply those biblical principles that we're talking about in our lessons? How do they apply that to their lives? We have to remember that their world is very small, and there are avenues to apply them right where they're at, and there are avenues to apply them when they go home. And so if you can just share, if something comes to you that say, hey, this is how you can apply this to your life, please share that. I've learned through the years that that is much needed, that if they hear, oh, so they can tie the application and what they're learning together. All right, next one, Alicia. Encouragement and engagement. This is your opportunity to respond to their questions and their prayer requests, for you to write encouraging comments in their lessons, and to compliment the student on completing the lesson, because we have to remember to go back to where they're living. Prisons are noisy and chaotic places, and often it's difficult just to have time to concentrate on anything for any period of time. And I think about encouragement. I shared this last night, is that in one of these calls, I expressed to you that I was feeling discouraged in this time. My world had flipped upside down, as yours has. I was longing for what was. You know, I'm by myself much too much, whereas I'm wired to be with people. And so I expressed that, and through the next days, people were emailing me much encouragement, and it just changed my whole attitude. It changed my whole affect, and I was just so appreciative of it with just a few encouraging words. And so I just want to emphasize the power of encouragement, the power of what you write, just complimenting the student, encouraging them, you know, to be strong, encourage them to, you know, remember that they're not alone, because loneliness is such a challenge inside the prison. And just to give them a few kind words. And as far as prayer requests, I just want to share something with you. We get lessons sent back to our office for various reasons. There's not enough postage. The student may have moved. There's just a wide variety of reasons. And we've taken that opportunity to do kind of a quality assurance, to say, okay, how are our mentors engaging with our students? Because otherwise we never see your letters unless they get sent back to our office, which doesn't happen on a scale like you would think it would. But so we took 100. We took 100 of the letters and lessons and just looked at them and say, our prayer requests being acknowledged by our mentors. And so I thought I'd share this with you. 4 44%. So this just kind of shows you that you don't always get a prayer request from your students, because 44% of the students of those 100 lessons did not have a prayer request in them. But of the 56 that did, 18 of the mentors did not acknowledge it, and 38 of you did acknowledge the prayer request. So good job. But I think it's something that we can hone in on, because, you know, if someone is sharing a prayer request, it's something that's on their heart. And they're actually kind of sharing a piece of themselves, a piece that they may be praising or a piece that they may be struggling with. And it's really up to us to acknowledge them in whatever they're asking for prayer. And then if you're going to pray for them, say, I will commit to praying for that. And because we are, and really it comes down to is that really as Christians we're obligated to do that, because we of all people know that prayer changes things. Okay, next slide. And lastly, you can close out the body of the letter, sharing and reminding them that God loves them. This is a great place to share one of your favorite Bible verses and why it's important for you. I know many of you like to share hymns or parts of songs that are near and dear to you. I just want to, if you're going to do that, I want to encourage you to actually write the portion of the hymn that you like or the song, and not insert it as an addition. I know I've seen people where they'll photocopy, you know, a hymn out of the hymnal and then attach it to the letter. I ask that you don't do that, because that is a trigger for the letter not to get into the prison. And lastly, if you've read my Just for Mentors, sometimes I will encourage you to write a blessing. You know, people have said blessings over me in difficult times. People have said blessings over myself and my wife Hendrina many times. They've laid hands on us, and it has always been a powerful experience. And so I want to share a blessing over you as an example of what we can share. So my blessing over you as mentors today is I give thanks to you as you faithfully serve your students. May you remain confident in the truth you share, the Jesus Christ you serve, and the hope you bring. May you have a sense of God's presence as you travel through each day, knowing He loves you, cares for you, and will always bring light when darkness comes. Thank you for allowing me to do that. And then as we close, we're going to talk about the salutation, closing, and signing. I know this maybe seems silly, but you know, there are different ways to do that, and you probably each have your own way of doing that. But I'm going to share some of the ones that I use. I use sincerely if it's a little more, you know, a little more structured type of thing that I'm writing. You can write, it was a privilege to review your lesson. The ones these two I use more often. It's may grace and peace be on you. And especially when I think about who we serve, and when I write our students, I'll often say, stay strong in the coming days. And then the example I gave on the slide here, signing it off, Douglas, your mentor for this lesson. This one's primarily for Tier 1, because in Tier 2 and 3, you have a much closer relationship. You have an ongoing relationship where you know each other better, and you will be his mentor, or that person's mentor, the next time and the next time and the next time. But in Tier 1, you see this person just one time. And sometimes that is confusing for our students, especially those in the beginning of the courses. they'll end up writing us that if I just signed it, grace and peace to you, Douglas, and close it up and send it in. What happens is that sometimes the students will contact our office. They'll actually send us letters to the mentor that they last had, or the time before, thinking that they have a one-on-one mentor because they didn't fully understand the process. And so we just want to encourage you to write Douglas, your mentor for this lesson, for your Tier 1 students, so that they get a better understanding that it's just a one-time interaction with them. Okay, and then there's two last things I'll share, and then we'll open it up. I just want to encourage you, I'm going to talk about progress reporting. And this really comes from, we just did a kind of cleaned up our database a little bit, and we had 79 mentors that were behind on reporting for 6 or more lessons. And the reason that we do that periodically is that when you're doing progress reporting, not only is it helping us to get a better reflection on how our curriculum is working, and if there's any adjustments that need to be made, but it is the way that we know that that lesson was seen by you, the letter went out and was mailed. So that's our way of knowing that that letter went to the prisoner or our students. And so with that group of 79, more than all of them had 6 or more lessons that had not had progress reporting. And so we had to put all of them on hold. I don't know if any of you were on hold for that, but we had to put them all on hold and contact them to correct that. So it's just an encouragement that when you're do your lesson, as soon as you're able, go ahead and do that progress report so that it doesn't get forgotten. And then next month, Aaron Mueller, many of you have met Aaron Mueller before. He's a dear friend of mine. He's a co-worker. He's our communications director, but he's also a pastor. We're going to continue the theme of letter writing, and he's going to talk about approaching your student in grace and truth. I think he'll do a great job. So just welcome me back next month on that. So that is that.